If I was on the west side today, I got to make sure I get to the east side tomorrow, and just to see what's going on and to have some FaceTime with the staff that's out there and swing by a restaurant that I wasn't at yesterday. And it's work and play combined.
Welcome to the storm. I'm your host, Stuart Winchester, talking about one of the biggest mountains in America today and one of the most rapidly improving, Snowmass, Colorado. Thank you to all of my paid subscribers for making the storm possible. This thing only works as a job, and you have helped me turn this into a sustainable small business. If you want to upgrade to the paid tier of the storm, you can do so at any time at stormskiing.com. You can also hook yourself up with a hat, hoodie, t-shirt, and more at the merch store at stormskiing.myshopify.com. And please follow the storm on YouTube, Instagram at Storm Ski Journal. All right, I am so fired up to talk to you about slopes. Slopes has been a part of my ski day, every turn, every run since 2018. And I am so fired up to have them back as a partner for the second consecutive ski season. If you're not familiar with Slopes, it is an incredible ski tracking app. It compiles your stats by day, by trip, by season, or by lifetime. Also very cool, real-time tracking of your friends while you're at the hill, including this year, me, as I am working as a product ambassador for Slopes. I am skiing all across America this winter, as I do every year, and if you track me down, I will hook you up with some Slopes stickers. Follow me on Instagram at Storm Ski Journal to see where I am skiing on any given day, and hopefully we will cross paths and take a run together. If you want to try Slopes, you can claim a free premium day pass by clicking on the link in the article that accompanies this podcast on stormskiing.com. After that free day, you are going to want to have premium Slopes all the time. I am plus 300 days and counting lifetime on the app. I absolutely love it, and I am fired up to have them back as a partner for the second consecutive year. See you on the hill. All right, let's talk about my friends at Profile Search International, the ski industry talent acquisition experts. For more than 30 years, Profile Search International has been the only executive search and recruitment firm in the entire world that is 100% focused on the ski industry. Look, one thing that I have learned very clearly from doing the Storm Skiing podcast is that running a ski area is a lot harder than we think. And it's only getting more complicated with things to deal with like data and online commerce that just were not part of the equation 30 years ago. And sometimes it's hard to understand in this landscape what you even need to do to compete, the kind of talent you need to compete. This is where Profile Search comes in. They have an intimate understanding of what it takes to run the modern ski area, and they know the folks who can help make it happen and who's available or who might be. Profile Search is set up with offices in the US and Canada, and they can find and negotiate with the right leaders for your team. You can reach out to them directly at profilesearch.com or contact them by email or phone, or send me a note and I can connect you directly with this expert team. That's Profile Search. Hit them up at profilesearch.com. I know you're here because you love skiing as much as I do, and you also probably hate traveling with skis as much as I do, especially when you mix in an airport. For me, that means anytime my family goes from the East Coast out to the Rockies, we have 4 ski bags, 4 boot bags, 4 suitcases, and 4 backpacks that we have to haul to the airport. This is a pain on so many levels. First, try fitting 12 bags and 4 passengers into a taxi, even an XL Uber. Second, half the time when you get there, the airline clerk person doesn't know that 1 ski bag and 1 boot bag counts as 1 bag, not 2 bags, even though that's been airline policy for decades. Third, once you get off the plane, you can spend up to an hour. I've spent even more waiting for your ski bags at baggage claim. So, You know what I did when my family and I flew to Colorado this year? We used ShipSkis, and it was incredible. The service picked up the ski and boot bags and suitcases a few days in advance. When it was time for our flight, we just jumped into a cab with 4 backpacks, something we've never done before. And when we landed at Vail Eagle Airport, we walked right out to our rental car. Our bags were there at the hotel waiting for us. I was skiing by lunchtime. Fast forward 12 days, we checked out of our hotel in Aspen and we just left all our bags in our room. And they showed up a few days later at our apartment in New York. I am not exaggerating when I say that this changed our entire vacation. I am usually a total stress ball about airports, but this completely shut all that down. It made me happier, which made everyone else happier. ShipSkis also ships golf gear. It is an incredible service, and I liked it so much that I want to share it with all of you. ShipSkis is giving listeners of the Storm Skiing Podcast 20% off orders at ShipSkis.com with the code STORMSKI. That's code STORMSKI at ShipSkis.com. All right, let's get to episode 224 of the Storm Skiing Podcast. Susan Cross, mountain manager of Snowmass, Colorado. My guest today is the vice president of mountain operations at Aspen Skiing Company, overseeing all mountain operations across the company's 4 ski areas: Aspen Mountain, Aspen Highlands, Buttermilk, and Snowmass. She has worked at SkiCo for 34 years, most recently as general manager of Snowmass, which offers 3,342 acres of skiable terrain on a 4,400-foot vertical drop, served by 20 lifts. Susan Cross is my guest. Susan, welcome to the Storm. So fired up to have you. How you doing in Colorado today?
Well, thanks for having me. And it's a beautiful sunny day here at Snowmass, Colorado, where we'd rather have cold temps and be making snow, but we might as well embrace the nice weather while we can.
All right. Well, I want to congratulate you, Susan, on your recent promotion. And I want to put this in context for the listeners and the viewers here. And I want to go back to what I said in the intro about 34 years, because that is an incredible tenure with one company. And Aspen is a very different place from what I understand as it was 34 years ago, which, if my math is correct, was 1991 when you rolled into town. So take us back here, Susan. What was Aspen like in 1991?
I thought I had found heaven.
Yeah.
I had been here in the summertime with a leading wilderness trips for teenagers, and we passed through town.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of the other leaders I was working with worked at Snowmass, ski school and ski patrol, and said, you ought to come out here for the winter. Mm-hmm. Summer's great, but you ought to come for winter. And when I got here, I didn't know that the sun shined 360 days a year. The snow was lighter, the sky was bluer, and it was awesome. There was one street light on Highway 82, all those little things that you laugh at now. And it's just been kind of a dream come true, and I never, ever expected that I'd be sitting here 34 years later.
So what brought you into town? Did you come west to be a ski bum? Did you grow up a skier? I think you grew up on the East Coast?
I grew up on the East Coast. I did not grow up a skier, maybe similar to you. Mm-hmm. I went on a couple of one-day high school ski trips with my cousin's ski club. There was no ski club where I grew up. And I grew up watching Wide World of Sports, mm-hmm. the Mayer brothers skiing, the agony of defeat. And I always thought, oh man, I love sports, and that is just so cool. That's something I want to do. So after college, I actually said, to my folks, I'm going to go up to Vermont to get a job at a ski area so I can learn how to ski. Mm-hmm. So I went up to Sugarbush.
Great.
And coming from the city, we had spent time at a country house, but pulled into Sugarbush at, 11 o'clock at night, and they had set up for me a place to stay. And the next morning I went to the interview, and I said to the woman, so what do people do around here? Because, it was out in the sticks. There was nothing going on. And she was concerned that I might not be happy there because I wasn't in the city.
Okay.
But it was a game changer for me.
Hmm.
I'm glad I have city life in my blood. I feel blessed that where I grew up, I'm so happy about for street smarts and all that, but I left it behind and I can always go back to it. And I never looked back. I was leading wilderness trips for teenagers in the summer and doing the ski bum thing in the winter.
How long did you stay up in Vermont for?
I was there for 5 winter seasons.
Okay.
And like I said, I thought that was amazing. I
Yeah.
didn't know that it wasn't supposed to rain and then be 0 degrees the next day. And, they put plastic bags on to ski in the rain and everything. I thought that's what it's all about. So then I was leading wilderness trips in Colorado, Utah, and Arizona.
Hmm.
And that's where I met the other folks. And we passed through the Roaring Fork Valley. We stayed outside of Aspen and kind of saw the beauty. We climbed a couple of 14ers in this area. And I was like, wow, the recreational opportunities at home are great,
Hmm.
but it's so much magnified here.
Hmm.
So I ended up, I told this story yesterday at New Hire Orientation. The way things have changed so much, even though I was in a managerial role at Sugarbush,
Hmm.
and all I wanted was an entry-level role at Snowmass,
Hmm.
I had to come for a personal interview. So I packed up the car,
Right.
drove the 2,000 plus miles, hoping I would get a winter seasonal frontline job.
Hmm.
That's all I wanted.
Hmm.
And what I had to do to get it. It worked out, obviously, but it was
Hmm.
so funny now I think of it. Everybody in the room yesterday raised their hand saying, when I said, how many of you interviewed online or just applied and got a job? And every hand went up. Like it was so foreign to them that I had to come for a personal interview.
And what was the
Yeah.
first job that you got?
So I was working what was then called skier services
Hmm.
because snowboarding hadn't really taken off. So we were, in the base area, meeting and greeting, handing out trail maps, shoveling snow, emptying trash cans, serving cider and cookies, and working out the race course for NASTAR, and just kind of the initial as people entered the resort, given directions. Pretty simple.
So let's set this up a little more. You told your parents, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going to go learn how to ski in Vermont. Now, for your Colorado listeners or folks who are not familiar with the East Coast and are listening to this for Aspen, I do want to give respect to the Mad River Valley. I think Mad River Glen and Sugarbush are two of the best ski areas anywhere. The terrain is outrageous and so fun, and they actually get quite a bit of snow. So
Yeah.
talk about your ski experience in the Mad River Valley and if you feel like you were ready when you got to Colorado.
So I skied as much as I could. I took lessons because they
Mhm.
offered free lessons. Some of the people I took lessons from in Sugarbush actually ended up as ski pros here at Snowmass while
Okay.
I was here as well, which was interesting. I got on the hill as much as I could. I was more of a visual person than standing around taking the lessons. So I would watch people skiing, and I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I want to look like that person. And back then the skinny skis, 200 centimeters long, and I didn't know much about any of it. I think I had rear entry boots at the beginning,
Yeah.
and learned from my colleagues at Sugarbush and started getting better equipment and spending time. And as I stated earlier, I didn't know the conditions would change so much when
Mhm.
I came west. So I felt like I had gotten to a good place after 5 winters of kind of 100 days of ski in a winter. When I came out here, it was heaven. It was like, this is amazing. The wide open trails, the
Mhm.
the elevation, the blue sky, the sun shining. I took so many pictures, and now I look back and I'm like, I have so many pictures under the burn lift every single year of the same thing, but it was just trying to capture that memory. It was amazing. It's
Uh,
been a blast.
That was amazing. Yeah, more foresight than me. I don't have any old era before phone pictures hardly. So let's set this up a little more as far as Aspen in the early 90s. And we know the skiing is great and it's always been great. What was the town like as far as, I just had this conversation yesterday with John Kelly, who started his career at Telluride, and talking about how much that town has changed. So curious what Aspen was like from a livability, affordability perspective in the early 90s. I don't know if you were already past that inflection point when things started going nuts, or if a person could still come be a ski bum and live in Aspen?
I believe I was still there because I had a little bit of money saved, but I wasn't rich by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And it was simple to make it work. I actually drove into town, did the interview. My parents had a timeshare that they could exchange, so I went back to Eagle over by Vale and stayed in a timeshare for a week while I was getting my feet wet being in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to the Roaring Fork Valley, pull into a gas station, and there's two ski instructors that I knew from Snowmass who had also made the trip west. They said, "Hey, we just found a place. We got a house. Are you interested?" And I had a room in a house, and there was another instructor that had come out the year before, and the four of us had a house in Carbon, not quite downtown Carbondale, but out just outside. And I was paying, I think, $200 a month to live there.
Wow.
In a house, on a bus. It was on the bus route. It was. That's why it's shocking now what it takes to do that, to be that person that packs up and moves out here. So I feel blessed that I came at the right time. And small town, Snowmass Village, I think the year-round population was like just over 1,000 people. Aspen, free buses between the two, 4 mountains to ski. It was everything you could dream of. So I have fond memories of arrival, and I can picture it so well talking to you now.
So we all know that Aspen is not like that now in the surrounding areas from a cost point of view. And without getting too in the weeds on that, what has that been like to live through, Susan? And do you think is there a certain event or cultural change you can point to that really started to tip the scales more in the direction we have now, where affordability is a real issue?
Yeah. I don't recall in my early years that it was changing much. I still felt like it was affordable and places were readily available to come in and rent with a couple of people or get a room in an apartment with somebody. But COVID probably did its job on us when so many people landed here, whether it was in their second or third home or the condo that they once used to rent to the ski bums, and now they're staying there. And all of a sudden, housing was not available.
Yeah.
Which was really hard to absorb because I was like, there's so much surrounding Snowmass Village, but there was nothing to be had. And then all the people arriving now expect you to give them housing, expect you to take care of everything for them, where I'm like, hey, if you can't afford it, you have to get a second job. I had a second job when I first started. That's how we got our feet on the ground. But it's just a whole different mentality now of what it was and what it is now.
How about the just commerce and the general vibe? You go downtown Aspen now and there's luxury handbag stores and things like this. I don't know if those were there in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm imagining maybe not. But what sorts of, I guess, cultural changes in just the lifestyle have you noticed as you've lived there for the past 3.5 decades?
Yeah. So some of those stores were there. They have existed forever, and they were next door to Eddie Bauer, things like that, or a local drugstore. So you could go in and shop reasonably at a clothing store, but not that clothing store, so to speak.
Yeah.
And people then were here to come and enjoy the natural environment. And those that had, or the movie stars, whatever you want to call them, they weren't here to be seen. They were here to blend in. That, I think, is probably the biggest difference, that people they came on the mountain. Yeah, they skied just like you and me. We rode the lifts together, had a little conversation, but there was nothing about, do you know who I am kind of thing. And that really changed probably more in like the last 10 years of seen and be seen when Instagram came in, and it's just posting pictures and Facebook and everything. And that was a big change to the vibe of, we're all here just to have fun, enjoy skiing, enjoy nightlife, raise a family, meet new people. And that really changed things probably from this point forward. I don't see us ever going back again.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch the changes in how places are perceived over time and to live that in real time. I moved to New York City in 2002, and at the time, Brooklyn was just a very working class borough, and you'd
Yeah.
go there if you couldn't afford Manhattan. And that's really not exactly flipped, but Brooklyn is just as expensive as Manhattan now. And
Yeah.
it's a whole different vibe, and it's considered differently. And it's like the brand has changed.
Hmm.
When people hear the word Brooklyn, they think, it used to be shipyards,
Yeah.
and now it's just something different that they think of. So have you sensed that with Aspen when you go back to the East Coast and you tell people, oh, I moved to Aspen? Does that get a different reaction now than it did in 1992?
No, even back in 92, they were like, "Ooh, Aspen,"
Mm-hmm.
because there was still the glitz and glamour of those that came to this ski resort still had money,
Yeah.
although they expressed themselves maybe in a different way. There's a little more now on, wow, how do you live out in Aspen?
Yeah.
And I feel like I've gotten established that I'm able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what a challenge it is for people that come. But yet you always have to defend it too. It's the whole valley of like, it's not all just like downtown Aspen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of worker bees out there. There are people that are really down to earth and love the area. That's why they've settled there. So I've never really dealt with the snobby attitude about people. I just kind
Uh-huh.
of went about my life and did my thing and enjoyed the people I met, whether I'm meeting them at the ski area, through volunteer opportunities, at church or wherever it is. There's good people everywhere. So I'm happy I've found those folks.
So I don't want to get too hung up on the luxury handbags and the housing prices. I'm sure that some things have also changed for the better over the past 34 years. So let's focus on that for a minute.
Sure.
What do you think is better about arriving in Aspen in 2025 than 1991?
Oh, that's a great question. The infrastructure is better.
Mm-hmm.
So bus systems between areas, there is more housing, so there is more employee housing at this
Yeah.
point. The mountains have certainly been updated, restaurants being updated, infrastructure of lifts and that sort of thing. And, in Snowmass Village, where the base village sits now, used to just be a huge parking lot with
Okay.
our locker room and offices were there. And we missed that space. We thought it was pretty run down before, but now if we could have that space back, I think we'd all jump there in a heartbeat. And I always tell people, they're like, oh, it's so crowded, so busy, blah, blah, blah. And I say, but as soon as you go up on the lifts, the mountain hasn't changed. You can still let go of everything else that from your work life, your family life, issues you have, and ski and enjoy life. And it, I think it's still a wonderful place to be. I look out the window and I'm thinking, how can anybody be not happy living
Mm-hmm.
here? And we have a lot of those people, unfortunately. So you just have to embrace it and, make the most of it for what you're looking for. And I have no issues with anybody, anything. It's just been a wonderful life out here.
So one of the big changes that you lived through, and this is kind of lost in time, and I really don't hear people talk about it. So I'm really curious about it as someone who lived through it, is when you came out there, Aspen Highlands was still independently owned. I don't know if you shared a
Yep.
pass or anything, but the founder, Whip Jones, was still in charge. He ended up donating it to Harvard around
Yep.
1992, 3. They sold it to a Texas oil guy, and then eventually Skico ended up with it. And that all happened around like 92 to 94. The time, I'm getting contradictory timelines online, so you can set me straight if you have those details. But what's more important here, more interesting to me, is what was that like to go from a 2-operator town to 1? And did that change the atmosphere and the culture, not having that push and pull of competing resorts anymore? What was that like to go through that?
So I was still new back then,
Mhm.
and mostly winter seasonal working out here. And I went to Highlands to ski, and I was like, oh, this is like being back in Vermont,
Yeah.
the quaint little chalet that was the restaurant bar, and the lifts were maybe dated like they were back at Mad River Glen kind of thing. Um, but here was a whole other experience. Hey, we get to ski here as well. So I have 4 mountains like within 9 miles
Mhm.
of each other. It was pretty exciting. If you get tired of one, you just jump over to the other. And coming from Sugarbush, I had north and south, so the train expansion, then had opportunity to go to Mad River Glen as well. So coming from 3 to 4 was even more of a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was pushback in the early years about it's not a locals mountain anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember clearly during the construction having to walk along barrier fences just to get to the base area. And,
Mm-hmm.
and then what it became was like, whoa, that's like amazing that we took this rundown locals, smaller ski area and turned it into this area that people are hearing about coming to ski and ride at. So the employees rolled over with the Aspen Skiing Company, and that was a big change for people
Mm-hmm.
because it was the Highlands way and such. And now we were not corporate by any means, but we were more of a business than they may have been when those folks were working over there. And we had the Highlander Pass for a number of years so that the people that just wanted to ski at Highlands could do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then when SkiCo kept advancing and improving, that became one of the 4 mountains under the SkiCo umbrella. And I, I don't think there's much of that pushback anymore because so many years have passed and now we've opened the bowl, added new lifts, and it's amazing to be able to go over there. And it's got their own little culture, but not in a bad way. It's a great experience for our guests coming to visit us as well.
That's an interesting perspective. And I'd only looked at it as an outsider and not really been able to tell if that was still a sore point. And I think I just put all this together that in 1994, SkiCo replaced 2 riblet doubles with the Loge Peak and Exhibition high-speed quads. That probably helped, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, they saw that they were putting money into the mountain for improvement, not to change it so that you weren't going to like it. But how could you not like it? It totally changed your experience of getting up on the mountain faster.
Yeah, because that's more than 3,000 feet of vertical. So that must have taken like a half hour to get up on 2 double chairs.
It was pretty slow. Yeah.
All right, so I bet no one misses that. So you've seen a lot of change, and probably you've lived through a lot and helped manifest some of that change as part of SkiCo for so long. So you started as a ticket checker. I wasn't clear if that was at Snowmass or they just shuffled you around, but take us through this career, Susan, at Aspen Snowmass and how you moved around the 4 different mountains and how they kind of work together.
Mm-hmm. So working together is a good observation. We've been pretty siloed. We all work for the same company, but we do things differently. And I know you mentioned in one of your comments and questions about Palisades and Alpine Meadows, separate staffing. We currently do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
At every mountain, there's a lift up manager, a grooming manager, snowmaking, patrol, and they all run individually. I'm happy to be in this role now to bring some consistency to the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we all want to have our own this is the family mountain, that's the locals mountain, this is the beginners mountain, but we can have some more consistencies on how we act and what we say and do and presentation and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. We're all in one uniform, one team, one dream, and we share resources, but we're also very individualized and separate. And I was able to start in Snowmass. I feel very fortunate because I went from an entry-level worker to a lead position to a director, was here for a number of years, moved over to Buttermilk, had a wonderful experience over there. It was much different than Snowmass just because of size and scope. Mm-hmm. Came back to Snowmass, came back to a couple of new lifts, and we've been putting lifts in since then. We've added coaster and tubing and ice skating at the base, so it became a resort, not just a ski area. Now it's a resort because there's so many things for people to do here. And then I had, working with my colleagues at Aspen and Aspen Highlands, it's been terrific to listen, observe, and ask questions. Okay, and now moving forward, how are we going to join forces and get things done? Safety is a big effort that we're working towards together. Consistency across the mountain of how we do things, guest safety and employee safety, and improving the guest experience, because we want to be the best, and there's always a better way of doing something or one more little trick of the trade that we can learn. So we're focused on really on those two things across mountains. If you get that service at Snowmass, you better get the same service at Buttermilk and Highlands and Aspen, and know that we're all in this together and want to give you the memorable experiences that you're expecting when you come here.
So what does that mean from an employee point of view, Susan? If I show up in Aspen and I want to be a lift operator for a year, might I be operating lifts at Snowmass one day and Aspen another day, or is it just a fill-in sort of thing, or is there just no sharing at all between things like groomer, snowmaker, lift ops, all the other different positions you have, instructors?
There's limited sharing, and it's mostly comes at the end of season when employees have started to take off, bail out. So Buttermilk closes first. So they may have a handful of employees that want to continue to work. So we'll take a few lift operators here. They'll go to Aspen Mountain. But generally speaking, up until this point, it's been mountain specific that you get hired at. For mountain operations in particular. Ski school is more blended. Ticket sellers are more blended. They can go from here to there. But everybody else is pretty much mountain specific. And we're with reconsidering that. Is that the way to continue to do business, or can we find more efficiencies and combine efforts?
All right, let's talk about my partner, Island Snow Bus. If you live in Long Island or Queens, I know you have a long way to drive for skiing. Trust me, I'm in that same neighborhood. If you're tired of waking up in the middle of the night and driving up to the bump alone, and then driving home by yourself at the end of the day, give Island Snow Bus a try. With pickups throughout Suffolk and Nassau counties, and in eastern Queens near the Whitestone Bridge, Island Snow Bus plans single and multi-day trips to some of the best known ski areas in our region, including Stratton, Killington, Mount Snow, Jay Peak, Sugarloaf, Whiteface, Gore, Bel Air, and Hunter. When a big storm rolls through, Island Snow Bus will throw together a pop-up trip. Island Snow Bus offers packages that include both lift tickets and transportation, or if you're already rocking that Epic or Icon pass, just the bus ride. It is an early pickup, but crash out, get some Z's, be ready to ski upon arrival. And you can always find some ski buddies on the bus. There are always other folks looking for someone to ski with. To check out their 2025-26 winter calendar, visit islandsnowbus.com, where you can use the code STORM for $50 off your first trip. So you've had a nice career there, Susan. What has kept you at Aspen Snowmass for so long? Was that deliberate? Did you say, this is my place and I'm going to stay here by any means necessary? Or did it just sort of work out that way? Was there a moment that kept you there?
It was not deliberate.
Yeah.
And I never expected to be here this long. And it's gone by so fast. Like speaking to you is bringing back these memories of just arriving in the office I had to go to and all that stuff that don't exist anymore. I had a plan, 2 winter seasons, and I was going back to Boston. Okay. That's where the family is. That's where I was going to get a real job. The ocean was there. I could go, up to New Hampshire for the lakes, and that was the game plan. And then I was working winter seasonal till like 2006 or 7. So winters were amazing, but I was excited about going somewhere else for the summer because there wasn't much operations here back in those days either. Summer operations didn't really exist. The gondola ran on Aspen Mountain, but there wasn't much happening at Snowmass. So there was no real reason to stay. It was a winter seasonal business back then. And then, I was doing the wilderness trips for teenagers, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of winding down from that, and opportunities are opening up at the ski company. And all of a sudden it turns into year round, and then I have housing, and then you get married, and then all of a sudden like life is working out. So it was never deliberate, but it worked out, and I have no complaints about it now. I miss home. I still have, I bleed Boston, New England, but this has been a magnificent ride too. This is amazing out here.
And I'm told, Susan, that you have made the most of it. Now, I talk to a lot of operators, and some of them have a hard time getting out to ski. but I was speaking with Joe Hession the other day, who's the head of Snow Partners.
Yeah.
And he didn't know that you were coming on this pod. He came up to me and he said, you have to have on the podcast. And Joe's been on a couple of times. He said, Susan Cross. I said, oh, well, she's coming on the podcast soon. And he said, and I quote, she is the most badass skier. And I said, why? Is she just really great skier? Is she, is she like a former competitor? And he said, she's just the most enthusiastic. She wants to go bell to bell. And if she misses a day, she's very upset about it. And he told the story about you two traveling to Europe for some sort of event and you missed a day. And by his telling it, you were a little bit salty about that. So, that's all Joe speaking for you, but let me let you speak for yourself now. How much do you get out to ski and how important is that to you?
I love Joe and I appreciate that story from him. If I miss a day, total guilt sets in.
Oh, really?
I strive to live fully as one of our values here at the ski company. And that means I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I better get out there today. It doesn't matter what the weather is. I need to get some time on one of our 4 mountains. So I deliberately make that happen by either blocking time, foregoing some invites to say that one's not going to work for me, going up before we open to the public for first tracks to get up on the lift and get a couple runs in. So even if it's got to be at least a couple of runs. I don't like to do one and say I was out there. A couple of runs, and it's just so good for the peace of mind. And I get up there and I'm like, this is amazing. Who would have thought that I would be overseeing a ski areas? That's what still blows me away, that I'm in this industry for this long, and I love it. I embrace it. I try to tell everybody else, you got to get out there for your own mindset and have fun with it. And, they complain, it's icy, it's too cold, it's windy. And it's like, you're going to miss out. And then when COVID came and people complained because they didn't get their 100-day pin, because they picked and chose what days they were going to go. And I will tell you, I'm not the best skier, but I put a lot of time in. So it's just a matter of getting out there. I was not a competitor or anything like that. It's just the love of the sport. And, biking and hiking in the summertime, I commute by e-bike to work every day from May through October. And if I miss a day there and have to drive, it's kind of like, So I'm a nutcase, I guess, but I enjoy it.
No, we're kindred spirits, Susan. I feel the same way. I have to ski every day on vacation, and I try to ride my bike every day in the summer. And this is actually a really great biking city. So do you have a routine? If it's sunny, you go here. If it's windy, you go here. If it's powder, you go.
Oh, for sure. Well, the routine plus where I need to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's not fair to the staff if I go to the same lifts every day and I see those folks and I never get over to the less popular areas. So I consciously change it up. If I was on the west side today, I got to make sure I get to the east side tomorrow, and just to see what's going on and to have some FaceTime with the staff that's out there and swing by a restaurant that I wasn't at yesterday. And, it's work and play combined.
What I've always loved about Snowmass is it feels like a bunch of different ski areas in one. If you're over off campground, you kind of have it to yourself. Yeah. And you go up off Hanging Valley, it's the same. You go up High Alpine and there's those great bump runs. Do you have a zone that really just speaks to you? Or is it depend on the conditions? And what is if you go one place at Snowmass, where is that place?
So it does depend on conditions. There's nothing like going up to Longshot first thing in the morning and taking that long run down to Two Creeks by yourself. Peace and quiet. You don't hear lifts running. You don't hear the chatter of anything else but top to bottom. I love Garrett's Gulch.
Longshot? Is that groomed mostly nightly?
No, not at all. It's only groomed maybe twice a year.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Yeah. So that really keeps the people off. So Longshot, and then I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
And Garrett's Gulch, which is between Sheer Bliss and the Big Burn.
Okay.
And you can either ski the gut or you can drop in from different trails off of the Sheer Bliss trail. Like you mentioned, campground, mostly when it's a groomed run from the top of Sam's Knob to the bottom of campground,
Yeah.
I like to just go and say, turn after turn after turn. And I'm not a straight liner. I like to
Mhm.
make a lot of turns and say, I
Yeah.
just did 300 turns in a row on that one trail, things like that. So I'm
You know,
quirky in that sense.
well, Snowmass is sneaky because I'm looking at the trail map now, which is why I keep looking away because I'm
That's okay.
orienting myself. And the map is very wide. And what
Hmm.
it does is it mutes a little bit of the drama of how tall Snowmass is. So I said at the beginning, 4,400 vertical feet.
Yeah.
It's the second tallest lift serve vertical in America, but really it's the first because the first is Timberline, and you still have to take a shuttle from
Yeah.
government camp back up to the main lifts. So as far as getting top to bottom on the lifts, until Timberline builds their gondola, you still have tallest top to bottom. It is incredible what a cruising mountain this is, and how many different highways there are and ways to go in different base areas.
And what's interesting to me is there are people who may come out for a week's vacation and they stay on one pod the entire week. They never venture away.
Mm-hmm.
So we call it 4 pods. We have the Sam's Knob pod,
Okay.
Big Burn, High Alpine,
Mm-hmm.
and Elk Camp. And each one's kind of a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So Elk Camp, you get the view at the top, looking up the Maroon Creek Valley. I mean, it's a Kodak moment for everybody.
Yeah.
Or you do the hike up to Burnt Mountain and ski long shot, or the Burnt Mountain trails. The Big Burn is kind of the breadwinner here, that everybody's heard about the Big Burn, wide
Mm-hmm.
open cruiser trails. Several of them are groomed nightly, and that's where the people are jet setting right to
Mm-hmm.
the groomed runs. High Alpine's a little bit different because the terrain's a little steeper. You get some bump runs up there. We usually groom either the edge or showcase, and they flip
Mm-hmm.
flop every other night. So
Okay.
that draws a crowd that wants to go and ski a black diamond for the first time, which is interesting to hear that. And then Sam's Knob is amazing because you get a 5-minute lift ride back up and you can get a good vertical run and go right back up.
Well, why do you suppose that folks get locked into one pod? I was talking to the folks who run Big Sky, and as you know, they've put in a bunch of new lifts over the past several years.
Yeah.
When you're in the main base, there's an 8-pack, the Ram Charger, that goes one way. There's a 6-pack Swift Current that goes another way, and now they're putting in a gondola next to Swift Current that goes up to their new tram. And what they tell me is that even though there's nice lifts after that, those are the nicest ones, and the
Yeah.
tram, and that people get locked in and they just really like those fast lifts, so they keep lapping them, even though Big Sky is gigantic, right? It's bigger
Yeah.
than Vail Mountain, and there's plenty of places to explore. Is there some similar dynamic going on at Snowmass, or do you think people just get in a comfort zone? Is there a way you could encourage them to explore more?
So riding the lifts with guests,
Mm-hmm.
that's when it always astonishes me. But the number one answer consistently is, I love the terrain here, like
Mm.
Elk Camp. I love the rolling terrain on the blue trails. If you can take a groomed run or you can jump off to the side and there's a little bit of powder, I get in there. So they stay there. We have a lot of people that just ski the Big Burn area just because
Mm-hmm.
of the wide open big cruising turns that you can make over there. So I think I don't think they get lost in it. They just love where they're at. The bigger concern we have is that a lot of people don't realize that their lift ticket is actually good for the 4 mountains.
Okay.
So they never venture to another mountain.
Yeah.
Um, which surprises me in this day and age that they haven't figured that out and seen that that's available to them. So we try to encourage them to, hey, at least go to Aspen Mountain and ride the gondola to the top and see the view over there. Buttermilk
Mm-hmm.
has an amazing view from the top, and you'd be surprised. It's a little bit quieter. You can ski over on the Tyack side. Nobody's around. I would say that the trails at Snowmass are not crowded. There's a few spots, if it's a noon groom or freshly groomed after a night of snow, those ones you see a little more traffic, but
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty of room to spread out and have a blast. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a little confusing on the Icon site how some of these destinations are marketed, and it's not exactly clear that you have access
No.
to multiple
Interesting.
mountains, and especially if it's
Yep.
Aspen Snowmass. I think people lock into Snowmass. There's also, I think, maybe an intimidation factor at work in the fact that Aspen Mountain and Highlands do not have any green runs at
Yeah.
all, and Buttermilk, I think, gets shaded for being too easy, and I'm just saying that's a reputation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so on the flip side, that's allowed you to really lean into what these mountains are. And I had an interesting conversation with some of your folks when they were out in New York for the Icon Pass event, and asked them, we've seen places like Jackson Hole build a mid-mountain beginner center, and Big Sky's doing the same. And these mountains with these fierce reputations are trying to appeal to more folks. Now, Aspen doesn't really have to do that because you can work together. And Snowmass does have some really rad stuff, Hanging Valley and elsewhere. But talk about that dynamic and how that allows Snowmass in particular, but each mountain to really just be what it is and not try to be, like if you're Copper, you want to have something for everybody. If you're Keystone, you want to have something for everybody. But here you have all these other places that people can distribute themselves around to.
Here, I guess we'd like to say is that we have a mountain for everybody.
Yeah.
So Highlands, the guest that's coming, not necessarily the local who's still a guest, but the guest that's coming in for destination skiing, they've heard about the bowl and they want to check that off their list. So they may spend a couple of days at at Snowmass and then venture to Highlands for the fourth day of the trip to do the hike and say that they did it. And then as you're probably well aware, Aspen Mountain has a particular skier. They don't venture. They're not coming past the roundabout. They don't venture out to Snowmass or Aspen Highlands or Buttermilk. And when they do, you often get the comments of, I had no idea what Snowmass was like. Right. So we could probably do a little bit better job of advertising that side of it, but people seem to find the niche that they're looking for. The Buttermilk and Snowmass are very family oriented. The ski schools are amazing for the kids. The parents who are a little bit better at skiers at Snowmass have something that they can go ski, while Buttermilk is more for the parents who are learning as well. The terrain's a little more gentle, a little less crowded. And we had a big issue, I'd say it was mostly last season, where the regular skiers at Aspen Mountain felt we needed to do a better job of making sure that the guests knew that there was no easy skiing on Aspen Mountain, because they felt like that those people are getting in the way. They're over their heads. They shouldn't be on Copper and Spire Gulch at 3:00 in the afternoon. And, they need to know that there's 3 other mountains for them. So they've helped us in now understanding, okay, we need to redirect some folks here and make sure that they know that the ticket is good at Buttermilk as well, because that's where they should be.
How do you do that? How do you communicate that? Because I think what you're up against is an industry that is tried very deliberately for several decades to make sure that there was green runs at every resort of note. And if you go to Vail, for example, which is your peer as far as aspirational ski resorts, right? Basically next door, they will find plenty of that. And even at Beaver Creek, which is a very steep mountain, they'll find plenty of that. So how challenging is it to help people understand that Aspen has not done that and Aspen Highlands have not done that? And how do you communicate that?
It is challenging, and getting the word out to everybody is hard, but Ski School does a great job with that. Introducing people to the 4 mountains, whether it's in a week-long group lesson where they travel from one mountain to the next. We have programming that is 4 mountain wide. In the ticket offices, when people, first-time families showing up, asking some of the questions, but trying to answer their questions to help them know what they don't know by suggesting where they should go. Not any kind of stereotype or anything, but the questions tend to lead to, well, maybe you should think about Buttermilk because you've never skied before. And Snowmass can still be a little daunting for the logistics of where you need to get to if you're a first-time skier at Snowmass versus if you arrive at Buttermilk, you walk through the parking lot, you're already at snow level, walk through the plaza, here's the ski school meeting spot and everything. So the experience is a little less daunting to go to Buttermilk as a beginner than it is at Snowmass. Now, Snowmass has all the housing and lodging based here, and that's why we end up with such a large group of the kids' ski school and the beginner adult lessons as well.
Buttermilk, though, you get 3 high-speed lifts, 2,000 vertical feet, and no people. So I enjoy Buttermilk, and I like all 4 of them for different reasons. So let's focus here on Snowmass. Susan, pumped a ton of cash into this mountain over the past couple of years. Huge improvements, especially with your lift fleet. And I want to talk first about Elk Camp. And Elk Camp's a perfect example of what I was talking about, of the scale of Snowmass's trail map. Because when you look at Elk Camp on the trail map, it looks like teeny tiny. It's a 1.5 mile long lift, which is very, very long for a detachable lift. So tell us about the new Elk Camp lift for the 2025-26 ski season.
It's exciting. It's a 6-pack, and it will help us with the lift lines that we've been seeing over the last couple of years. It's in pretty much the same alignment. It's the base terminal has pushed a little bit further to the east, but it terminates at the same spot it did in the past. It was challenging this summer with the construction because we still ran the Elk Camp quad chair for summer operations.
Oh, wow.
Through August 4th.
Okay.
So there was a lot of pre-work done in May, June to set up for the success of finishing the construction. But running that lift was a game changer for the construction team. And then August 4th, dismantling. And we had to dismantle because we were selling the lift. So it wasn't just take it down in 3 days. It was take it down in 2 weeks.
Right.
So, but it's up and running, and we had the load test, and we had the evac test, and we had the lift inspection, and we're ready for this winter. It's exciting.
Did you have to reuse foundations, or did you actually build them side by side?
Completely new lift, foundations, towers, nothing overlapped. Yeah, it just moved a little bit to the east.
So you're going 6. What do you hope the impact is of going from 4 to 6? You know, I've had a lot of operators tell me recently, like Killington, for example, I just had them on the podcast, and their new Superstar 6-pack, which is their famous summer lift that spins into June, is replacing an old detachable 4, but the 6 will have a lot fewer chairs on it. And they said it's really not going to have more capacity. We just wanted a nicer lift. What's the approach at Elk Camp? Are you going for more capacity?
We are at more capacity, 50% more by going with the 6. And that was intentional. So Elk Camp Pod is busy because of the coaster tubing activity for the non-skiers. The restaurant was always over capacity because the gondola takes you up there, so you can be a foot passenger on a gondola sightseeing ticket, and then obviously the terrain for skiing over there. So we were seeing big lift lines, and this will help with that. And we've also expanded the deck at the restaurant, so added 120 seats for the crunch at lunchtime. And because what we find is it's easy for the non-skiing members of the family to ride the gondola up, hang out at the restaurant, taking up seats, saving seats, while the family skis or the kids go on the coaster, and then the family meets there at the restaurant. So that campus has really been very successful.
So you said the unload is approximately the same as it was. Right now, when you get off at Elk Camp, there's a little hike up to the Burnt Mountain Glades. And I know you have a chairlift scoped in the master plan to potentially go in there at some point and serve that peak. But was there any version of thinking or planning where you thought about rotating the Elk Camp to unload up atop of Burnt Mountain to eliminate that hike and give people access to all that terrain?
It was definitely conversational amongst some of the key players that were going to be involved in the final decision making. But we opted to keep the lift line pretty much the same and preserve the hike up to the Burnt Mountain area.
So anything fancy on this lift? We see a lot of heated seats, bubble chairs. Your Coney Express last year had some really nice padded chairs on it. What's the physical lift like? Any embellishments?
So sorry to say no. So the Coney Express chair, we went with the comfort chairs, high-backed, seat cushions, that sort of thing. And it didn't work out as well for us as we had hoped. We've had to do some modifications on those chairs. So we are back to just a regular 6-pack chair, similar to what's on the Big Burn lift. I sat on it the other day. It's still comfortable, but doesn't have the high back. So no big change. It's not heated. We considered bubbles when we were doing the burn chair in 2020, but with the high winds and crosswinds, we opted not to do that. And that was kind of the same reasoning on the Elk Camp chair as well.
Yeah, I'm hearing the closer someone is to mountain ops, the less they tend to want bubbles because of all the hassles that go with them. And another thing Killington told me is that they did not put bubbles on the new six pack. Well, this wasn't why, but they said that their other six pack that has bubbles, they were $15,000 each to replace. So you can imagine that adds up over time. So let's talk about Coney Express. And this was new for last season. So you've had a season to sit with it, and that replaced a shorter lift. But why don't you break down what that upgrade was for us, Susan, and how happy you are with it?
So that one, Coney Express exceeded expectations. It went so well. So it relieved the pressure from the Village Express.
Yeah.
It's a quad that you can access from the mall, which drops the people off at the bus station, the village shuttle from within the village town of Snowmass Village, as well as the rafter bus coming from Aspen and down Valley. So the game changer was we did not see the lines at the Village Express like we did in the past. It was like I said, it exceeded expectations. Everything about it. It was a quicker route to get up to the Big Burn area, but you could also get to Sam's Knob. The 4-pack served us well. It served the terrain pack. Coming down to the mall was a little bit different for the park riders, but there was no issue with cross traffic from skiers versus park riders. And, I don't think we could have wished any better than what we actually got out of that. So it was terrific.
I see a lot of ski areas now try to build lifts maybe closer to the trees. This one, and I haven't been out there since you built it, so I've not seen it in person. It seems like at some points it goes down the middle of the trail. You didn't find that got in the way of the skiing or the ski experience?
Are you talking about Coney Express still?
Yeah, Coney Express.
Okay. No, it changed the area above the Spider Savage race arena area. But it opened up the cabin trail where the big, large terrain park is. So given the terrain, we only had one area that we could fly through by the houses. And that's why it's a quad, not a 6-pack, because the airspace, we were limited going through there.
Okay.
But it didn't affect the ski experience at all. It was actually worked out really well for the terrain park users, as well as the people coming down to the cabin restaurant for lunch, and ski school getting off and skiing lunch line and going around towards the beginner area. So it worked out really well.
Sounds like you wouldn't have minded having a 6, but you have a 4. Are you okay with that?
It has worked out. It did work out well last year. With the capacity out of the base now, with the 4-pack, the gondola at 8, and the Village Express at 6, it seemed like it handled traffic pretty well.
So you have a mid station on this, and it's not clear from the trail map that you can't unload there, that you only can load, if I have that correct.
You do.
Yeah. So tell us about the mid station and why that configuration is the way it is.
So that was the one hiccup we had last season, is we didn't end up loading at that station all season. And that was because of an issue with the ramp.
Okay.
So this easy, comfy chair that we ordered is spring loaded. And we found that when you come into the mid station, the back of your boots getting caught up in the chair, and the ramp height had to be one height to get off and another height to get on. And it caused a lot of problems. So we didn't load there.
Okay.
But we did unload foot passengers going to the restaurant.
Okay.
So this year, we're actually in the midst of it now. We're trialing a hydraulic mid-station ramp.
Okay.
That when you come out, it will know when to come up and down, so that you're at the right height to load, and then it drops down again. So stay tuned on that one. We're excited about it.
And why no skier unload? Because it seems like maybe that park riders would like to unload there, but what was the thinking there?
We had to make a choice which one we're going to do, unload or load.
Okay.
And it wasn't going to serve enough of the park if we did the unload. It was only going to be the lower, easier section. So we decided that this chair will serve the park pretty much from top to bottom.
Okay.
But the riders that ride the large park would come in and circulate up top, or NASTAR racing, they could go back to the race course. So it was going to serve a better purpose to load versus unload.
So again, this a very long lift. And with that mid station, you have, it's similar to the Collins lift at Alta, and it only has loading and not unloading. Curious from a logistics point of view, Alta, I believe when it's busy, keeps every 10th chair empty to load on that mid station. And I appreciate you said that you really couldn't load there last year, but have you thought through how you're going to handle that and make sure that people can get on into mid station?
We have a mid-load station at Buttermilk as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we do every other chair when it's busy. And then you can flex as needed if every third chair, fourth chair.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the plan is every fourth chair, but we haven't used it yet. So it's really just conversational. We have to see how it works out.
So one of the unique things about that Collins chair is that it's two machines, actually. So it's one lift on the bottom. At the mid station actually becomes another lift. The riders experience it as one. Alta built another lift, Supreme, on the other side of their hill in 2017. It was also a Lightner Poma, and it had a bend in it, but it was just one lift. This Coney Express, also an LPOA lift, also has a bend at the mid station and then another slight bend between towers 7 and 8. Alta had to completely rebuild Supreme over this past summer because of metal fatigue from the chairs passing through that bend. Curious if the LPOA engineers had solved that problem by the time they built this lift, if that's something you're concerned about, if there's safeguards against an engineering challenge. I'm not sure how you're thinking about that or approaching that because, Alta having to rebuild a lift 7 years after the 8 years that they put it in was not ideal.
So when we first chatted about replacing the Coney Glade chair with this Coney Express, we were not planning on a mid station.
Okay.
We were planning on at about that area, the lift would take a bend and go up to where it unloads now. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that degree of that bend was such that we were going to have a station there to have somebody looking up and watching how that chair went around the bend. Mm-hmm. So when we found that out, it was like, okay, then we might as well put a mid station in because we got to have somebody there anyway. So we went with the mid station, and with that degree of bend that we now have one lift, 3 terminals, and I believe, yet to your point, yes, it's corrected. We didn't have any issues with the carrying through that mid station and carrying on up the hill, but we'll see what happens this year when we load it. Yeah. We didn't expect to have that as a station.
Quick break here to tell you, if you run a ski area or outdoor brand, you should consider hooking up with my friends at Bonfire Collective. Bonfire Collective is a fractional marketing team that collaborates specifically with ski areas and outdoor brands. They will give your marketing a fresh perspective and better storytelling to supercharge your rebranding or advertising. Bonfire can help you rethink your approach in ways that can turbocharge your business. For example, they took on the marketing at one New Hampshire ski area and doubled revenue in just 3 years. And I am speaking from firsthand experience here. When the Storm was ready to invest in our first ever digital marketing campaign in 2024, I worked with Bonfire to make it happen, and I brought them back for a second round this winter because I was so satisfied with the results. I love working with them because they do great work and because they are great people who are genuinely pleasant to be around. If you want to get started with Bonfire Collective, you can start that process by talking to Eric over at Bonfire Collective. Eric was a co-founder of Bluebird Backcountry Colorado, the first human-powered ski area. He knows the ski business, as many of my listeners realize, because Eric came on the podcast last year and told that story. Visit bonfirecollective.com to connect with Eric, or I will be happy to make that connection for you. Back to it. So another lift upgrade, there were actually 2 this summer, and less headline grabbing, but I think important because I think in the United States we don't use surface lifts enough, especially as the price of chairlifts increases so much. So you had a surface lift upgrade at the top of the mountain. Susan, tell us about that.
So we doubled capacity because we went from a pommel lift to a T-Bar.
Okay.
And everybody's questioning, how do you ride a T-Bar? Is that going to be okay for snowboarders? And my standard answer is everybody's going to have to figure it out because that's what we used to ride was T-Bars. Mm-hmm. So it's a straight alignment. the former lift had a bend in it, which was very problematic because when folks had fun skiing out of the line, they derailed it often,
Okay.
very often, which was
All right.
frustrating for the maintenance guys and the other people on the line and such. So we've eliminated that problem, doubled capacity, and a T-bar versus a lift. The experience traversing that terrain up there, high winds and such for if you're on a lift. So we're able to keep this open pretty much through any kind of storm that other chairs might get closed down because of high winds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of exciting too. That lift line was becoming, last year was like 45 minutes plus to
Wow.
go up there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really wild to see that the people would wait that long to go up the Palma. But you can traverse across to the high alpine area, you can ride the Cirque area, or you can ski back down the intermediate Rocky Mountain High Trail. And it's a beautiful view. You feel like you're on top of the world up there. You can unload and then hike up a little bit higher. You can go through the backcountry gate, ski West Willow area, go over to Baldy Mountain. So there's a lot of opportunity up the top there. It's a lot to maintain for the snow safety team in the Cirque
Mm-hmm.
area, avalanche mitigation. But I think this is going to be a game changer. So we'll see how people do riding T-bars.
So you mentioned the wind, and if you could address this, that would be helpful because I don't think it's widely understood how that impacts lift operations. So if I'm a tourist well, I am a tourist, but let's say I'm a tourist
Yeah.
who has never been to Snowmass before, and I ride the 6-pack Village Express up, and I ski down to Big Burn, and I ride the 6-pack Big Burn up, and then I ski down this T-bar. I'm like, what is this? Like 1962? Why am I riding a surface lift? So tell us, Susan, why didn't you replace that clunky old Poma with a chairlift?
So because of the exposure up there
Yeah.
and the crosswinds,
Mm-hmm.
we would be shutting it down more often. This is kind of a fun experience that you
Mm-hmm.
don't get to ride T-bars all the time.
Yeah.
So a little bit of nostalgia there. And I think people are going to get a kick out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody has lifts, but not everybody has T-bars.
Yeah.
So people are going to come and maybe I never ride the pommel lift anymore. The lift line's too long, or been
Mm-hmm.
there, done that. So I think it's going to reintroduce that Cirque area to our guests again.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to Breckenridge, which has T-bar serving their high peaks. So that Poma doesn't look like it was that old, maybe from the 90s. I don't know if it had been relocated. Are you keeping that? Can that be repurposed anywhere?
No, the Palma, so that was from 97.
Mm-hmm.
It was it's seen its useful life. However, we did sell that one to Wolf Creek.
Oh, cool.
They
Nice.
bought it mostly for the pots
Okay.
because they have a similar lift and theirs is aging. So it was repurposed to Wolf Creek, which is exciting that instead of just scrapping it.
That's
getting
great.
repurposed.
So let's talk about selling lifts because Aspen Snowmass does have a tradition of doing this. And the Elk Camp lift, as you mentioned, was sold. So tell us where that lift is going and how that deal came together.
So I don't know all the details, but I can tell you that lift is going to our neighbors down in Grand Junction at Powderhorn Ski Area.
Mm-hmm.
Like Napalma out of Grand Junction was involved in that decision making with our planning team. And at first we thought we were going to stage it somewhere in one of our parking lots somewhere on mountain and put it in over at Aspen Highlands and maybe replace the Thunderbolt lift.
Okay.
So that was in the initial conversations. And that wasn't probably going to be our best move. So the repurposing to Powderhorn seems like it's a win-win for them and for us versus just, again, scrapping it or trying to sell the chairs and raise some money. But it was a little bit of a project for the Palma team to deconstruct and have it trucked out of here, but it went smoothly. And kudos to those folks that were working on that project in a timely manner. 2 weeks after we closed it from summer operations, they had it pretty much loaded up and out of here. And we look forward to seeing it down. And I know that the people down in the Powderhorn are excited about it because we have several former employees who now live in that area, and that is their home mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big deal when they got the meteor alert that the Elk Camp chair was coming to Powderhorn.
Did you go looking for a buyer or did they just happen? Did they see it was coming out and come to you?
The planning team definitely was in contact with a few areas that were interested.
Mm-hmm.
And this being the closest to us and easier for them to move it from here to there was a game winner for everybody. And Palmer being right there, they're installing it next year for them, so it's going to work out well.
Yeah, the detachable lifts, I was surprised when I started looking into this story, have not proven to be very good relocation candidates. And I put together some numbers, and only 19 detachable lifts have been moved in America, and only 9 are at ski areas other than the one they started at.
Okay.
So not counting Powderhorn, which actually their other detach also came from another ski area in Canada. So they'll have 2 removed detaches. You know, moving lifts is quite common. And last year, for example, Aspen Mountain sold the couch to Maverick Mountain up in Montana, which is a ski area. They're still running a 1960 something riblet double up 1,600 vertical feet. So they desperately need that, but they could never afford a new one. And even Powderhorn, which is owned by a little conglomerate, Pacific Group Resorts, which is based in Park City, even they told me this is going to save us a couple $1 million.
Yeah.
We could not have afforded a new lift at current prices, even being right down the road from LPOA at Powderhorn. And that lift, it replaces a 7,000 foot long 1972 double chair. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a really different experience. So I guess my question for you, Susan, and the reason I set it up that way is to underscore that these sorts of transactions are extremely valuable to ski areas that aren't Aspen, Snowmass, and cannot afford to replace a lift every 30 years. Is that deliberate from inside of Aspen to let things, let the wealth flow down? Is it just a business transaction? Is it none of those things? It just sort of happened. Is there anything deliberate about this act of selling your still good but used lifts to smaller ski areas?
It's a little bit of everything you just mentioned, because yes, it is a business transaction. Repurposing is better than just salvaging. Mm-hmm. And one of our pillars is sustainability, and to be able to know that instead of trashing it, it was be useful purpose to somebody else, is one of those feel good stories as well. So if we want everybody to stay in business, because they might be the feeder resorts to the bigger resorts. And like you said, they can't do it. They can't replace this equipment. And eventually those old double chairs are going to wear out and not be able to be replaced. And you don't want more areas shutting down. We want to embrace it and bring people into the business. And then, they make their trip out to Aspen Snowmass, and, they're lifelong skiers. Yeah. So we're happy to repurpose and keep those folks moving along, and know that we contributed to their success as well.
So is this something? Yes. Is this something you're going to be looking to do as you take out other lifts in the future? And I know some of them are just too old. Those first generation detachables, I'm assuming that's why Coney did not find a new buyer, because I believe that one was 84, 85, 86, something like that. And those first gens, I'm told, are just not candidates for relocation. Yeah. But will you try, do you think, to pair up as you replace more lifts?
So we will continue to do so. And to your point, Coney Glade was 34 years old, one of the originals. We couldn't get parts for it anymore. The guys were searching eBay to fix different things. So that one wasn't going to serve its purpose. But we did sell the chairs for a fundraiser and made a lot of money for the one of our local nonprofits. So there's a rhyme or reason to all of it. But yes, we will try to repurpose lifts as best we can across the industry.
All right, so Coney and Elk Camp and the Cirque T-Bar were all part of the 2022 master plan update for Snowmass. So let's talk a little bit more about the master plan, then I'll let you get out of here. So the other 4 major lift projects that were outlined in the master plan: replacement for Alpine Springs, replacement for Super Bliss, replacement for Village Express, and an all-new chair for Burnt Mountain that would run next to Elk Camp and but from a different area and land up on those glades I was talking about earlier. As you consider those 4, Susan, and I know there's 4 mountains to spread the wealth around, but are there any of those that stand out as a priority for the next upgrade?
So one thing to correct you, it's sheer bliss, not super bliss, because I
Oh,
know you have a lot of lifts in your head.
yeah, yeah.
And it is sheer bliss when you get over there. When we were going to replace Elk Camp, there was the toss-up, Alpine Springs or
Hmm.
Elk Camp.
Okay.
And we had opinions going both directions.
Hmm.
I was originally Alpine Springs. We were having a lot of mechanical issues. We end up updating the drives, controls, and we get another good season out of it last year. So we shift to Elk Camp. It's starting to age as well. We have summer operations. We're putting a lot of
Mm.
hours on it. So we went the Elk Camp route. So Alpine Springs is critical for us.
Hmm.
What we're trying to do is at least one lift a year across the four mountains.
Yeah.
So next summer looks like we'll put a new lift in on Aspen Mountain. Following summer could be Alpine Springs.
Hmm.
A little love to Highlands or Buttermilk, but they don't have summer operations and they don't have the same volume. So we kind of take a look at, okay, which lifts are more critical going forward. You mentioned Village Express being changed out. That would be to activate operations summer and winter at the restaurant at the top of the mountain
Hmm.
of the Sam's Knob area because we can't run that nighttime for open air lift for nighttime activities. So that would open up the opportunity for year-round business up at that restaurant,
Hmm.
weddings, dinners, cat rides, whatever it is. So yeah, we, are thinking long and hard of what's next. The Sky Cab, Skittles to be replaced in the next couple of years with the town of Snowmass Village. That's in the pipeline right now, and um, more to come.
You think Alpine Springs and Sheer Bliss would be go up to six packs?
Sheer Bliss, probably not because we have the burn and it serves the same area.
Hmm.
Alpine Springs more than likely would be a six pack as well. Yes, that's the initial conversation.
And how about Village Express? That's actually only a 20-year-old lift.
Yeah.
So I believe what the master plan called for was a 10-passenger gondola. So that would be opposite the Elk Camp gondola. Would you be looking to repurpose Village Express somewhere, or is this just in there as, we'll do this somewhere down the road. Let's just get approval on it.
No, we've talked about it. If we do Village Express switch to a gondola, Village Express goes over to Alpine Springs and replaces that
Mm,
one.
okay. Okay.
So yeah, all those pieces are moving around of what's the next best move and when we're going to do it, being considered.
Yeah, so how about the lift for Burnt Mountain? Is that any kind of priority for you? Would you personally like to see that?
I would personally not like to see that.
Really?
I think you earn it by doing the hike.
Okay.
It keeps it kind of special up there that it's not crowded.
Hmm.
People would be over their heads if they could take a lift to it. Well, now they determine if they can do the hike, if they're going to be able to ski down it, because sometimes they have to turn around from the hike, which isn't much of a hike, but for some people
Yeah.
coming from sea level, that's pretty challenging. But once they get to the top, now they're committed to that
Hmm.
long run, and that it's already problematic that they're over their heads for the length of the trail that they're committed to. So I could foresee it with, climate change and it's warm at the base of Two Creeks, but long shot and Burnt Mountain is skiing amazing. But we, like last season, we washed out down at the base because we melted out
Hmm.
and we had to close that terrain because there's no way back to
Hmm.
the bottom. So could it act as a midway up to the Burnt Mountain and allow that skiing to last longer? Yes. But right now I'm content with doing the 5 minute hike up there.
Is there some healthy internal tension around that lift, or is there kind of consensus internally that that's our last priority?
It's not a high priority because you can get there to do the skiing when we have other aging infrastructure that
Hmm.
probably needs to be addressed before we just add new lifts to different terrain.
So since you brought it up, can you tell us anything about the Aspen lift?
Yep. So we're looking to replace the Nell and the Bell chair and make one quad chair from base to top of Bell
Hmm.
Mountain. And it's moving through the process now. I was kind of hoping it didn't go through so I could get Alpine Springs, but we need
Okay.
to show some love everywhere. So it looks like it may happen next summer.
That
And
would
that's a
be,
game changer. Sorry not to interrupt you, but
yeah.
if the gondola is aging now too in
Yeah.
Aspen. And if that goes down, you're kind of stuck with getting people out of the base quickly. So this would help with that and having a redundant lift to get people up and out.
That would completely change the experience of Aspen Mountain. It took me quite a while to figure out how to even get to Bell because that chair never runs. And I had to ask a local who showed me the little passageway or whatever you have to take in up by the terminal. But how do you foresee that changing skier traffic at Aspen? Because I imagine Bell then would get a lot more love and a lot more use.
Well, I think you have two different skiers, right? The one that wants to be enclosed in a gondola and the one that says, I'm fine with an open air chair.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to help that mountain. Like as you mentioned, Bell chair hasn't run much at all in the last couple of years, except maybe when the gondola went down or closing day. But I think it's going to change how people ski because I personally don't get much to Bell Mountain either just because of the lift structure when I'm over there.
It's great little terrain, though. It's great bumps over there.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a mid station? Because that would be a very long lift.
It's a long lift, no mid station.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would kind of be getting back to that original lift one, which was Looker's Right, but that super long lift that went up from town.
Yep. That's a good question that's been brought up, but at this stage of the game right now, it's a long lift from bottom to top.
Yeah, it also won't be a single chair that takes 35 minutes to get to the top like lift one was. So just asking as a skier, how much has Heroes changed Aspen? How much do you like that terrain?
The terrain is great, but it hasn't changed Aspen. They're not getting overwhelmed by any means.
Okay.
There was more work done in there this summer to clean up some of the construction from the last couple of years. So grading is improved. It skied well last year. I think it's going to ski even better this year. And that takes a certain skier to spend their time in that area. So it was great to add 150 acres of new terrain. People have heard about it. The lift is great. So it was needed for Aspen. It's exciting too.
All right, Susan, I've kept you on the screen long enough when I know that you have 4 mountains you have to get open within a couple of weeks here. So I cannot thank you enough for your time. That was super awesome and informative. And I can't wait to get back out to Snowmass. I haven't been in a few years, but I'm planning to come out this year. So hopefully we can take a couple runs together.
Well, you haven't been here since January of 2018 because I did a little research on you too.
Yep.
But I understand that you're coming back and you're coming out in February, I guess?
Yes, that's exactly right. Did your people tell you that, or did you look in your system?
I looked in the system for how often you've been here, and I was told that you were coming out in February.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. That's exactly right. Okay. Great. Well, let's meet up then, and you can show me some of the good stuff that I've been overlooking in my tourist wanderings.
Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity because I had no idea where this might go, but it was a really great conversation and you stirred up a lot of memories for me over the last 30 plus years. And I look forward to meeting you and think snow, send cold temperatures this way, and let's make a magical season out of this.
Absolutely. I had a lot of fun. Thanks a lot, Susan. Let's do it again sometime.
Have a great day.
That was Susan Cross, mountain manager of Snowmass, Colorado. Thank you so much for that, Susan. That was incredible. Thank you all so much for listening. Please follow The Storm on Instagram and YouTube at Storm Ski Journal. Till next time, stay well, stay safe. I'm Stuart Winchester, and I'll talk to you again very soon.
The Storm Skiing Podcast is a Quicksilver Films production.